Oh hey y'all, today is the long-awaited Q&A. On different platforms, I asked y'all to submit your questions. I'm gonna go through Patreon questions first, Instagram, and then YouTube. It's gonna be a chill video, even though there's a fire truck passing by. And so let's jump into the questions. Okay, first, Patreon questions. Now, I do want to say I've currently put my Patreon on pause. I think I'll make it active in January or February. So if you're trying to join my Patreon, I don't think it lets you since I put it on pause. But these were submitted at the end of October. Francesco asks, "Hello Kevin, how are you doing?" I'm doing well, thank you. Antherium collection, what's your goal for it? And what's in your antherium wish list? P.S. My boyfriend and I love all your RuPaul references, oh my gosh. Francesco, I know you're like a huge antherium fan. You always, comment about antheriums. And also hello to your boyfriend. My goal for my antherium collection, that is a huge question. Ultimately, my biggest goal is just to try to improve more, try to learn more. Despite all the success that I've had with antheriums, I still don't think I'm the expert. Like, it's very hard for me to give advice when it comes to antherium care. It might just be all in my head, but again, it kind of stems from I'm gonna experiment my way in my environment, see what happens, and then adjust accordingly. And that's kind of the thing I do with all the other plants in my collection. I'm known for not necessarily looking up at other influencers, other creators, even stuff that you Google. Like, I don't trust. Do I have trust issues? I do not trust anything. So that's number one, like learn as much as possible as a goal. I do in the future, okay, big news. My antherium mutinum, I didn't think it was mature enough, but she's pushing on inflow. And then my antherium veitchii is pushing on inflow. Y'all know that the hybrid that I want the most to make for my collection is antherium mutinum and antherium veitchii. Right now, I think the mutinum inflow is more ahead than the veitchii, but we'll see what happens with that. But anyhow, pollinating, like I do want to do that in the future. I know I wanted to do it or said I want to do it this year. My interests changed with that. Like, it wasn't like an important thing for me this year, but maybe next year. I don't know, we'll see. What's your antherium wish list? There's too many. There's honestly too many. I mean, red crystallinum is always gonna be close to the top. King of Spades, also want that one. And again, I am so down for any antherium hybrid. Like, watching them grow, again, they will look different from their brothers and sisters, so that would be so interesting. So like any hybrid that I don't have already, King of Spades and red crystal. Also, like, there's types of clarinervium that have like super extreme veining, more so than the clarinervium. Like, is it Queen and King of Clarinervium? Like, those are stunning. Okay, Marnie McCallum asks, will you be doing videos every day in December? So because this question was from October, I didn't really announce that I was doing it. I will be doing Vlogmas. Not only will I be doing Vlogmas, but I will be doing shorts as well every day, along with long form videos. So that's kind of a change from last year. If y'all are new here, I posted every day in December. It was a good experience for me. It was very tiring, and y'all know me, I like a challenge. So I'm gonna do that plus shorts while also working at the hospital. So Marnie also asks, where do you get those syringe extensions? I keep losing the syringe and the nutrients bottles. It has happened to me. It has happened to me. I use bigger ones. The seller is not on Amazon anymore. I originally got it from Amazon. I don't think it is. I checked on it recently and it was unavailable, but I think the ones I use are like 60 ml syringes with like a nozzle at the end. And then the third question from Marnie, where do you see yourself in 5 years? It's so tough. This question is so tough. And I mean, a year into just doing this full time, like YouTube and this plant thing, it's shifted. I think something I've been working on this year is that I don't necessarily have concrete goals. And to this day, it is still very hard for me to make concrete goals. And so I don't necessarily have anything highlighted at the 5 years from now. I always try to think, like, 5 years ago, what were my goals? And 5 years ago, like, this plant thing wasn't even in the forefront. Like, I was still a full-time nurse. My goals still kind of aligned with being a nurse. So I think at the time, that was like 2018, like, I want to become more of an expert in my specialty, learn as much as possible. And so I feel like if I make a goal now, like, it's not gonna be a thing. Yeah, I don't know, it's tough. Like, right now, I'm kind of like, let's go with the flow, see what happens. I don't know, I'm doing that thing again where I read the question and then my brain changes the question and then I answer it differently. In 5 years, I still see myself doing YouTube videos. Like, unless something really severe happens with social media. Hi, Kevin, and hello from Switzerland. Oh, that's so wonderful. Hello. Sorry, but I have to ask about your nutrient solution, which I am sure many did already. Sorry, it's okay. Don't worry. Here in Europe, they are called Terra Aquatica. I was able to find most of them except the Rapid Start. I got some similar root boosters. Now, my question, do you have various types of solutions? One for young plants and one for older plants. I saw that you changed to a stronger solution. Thank you very much, Maria. Good question. I'm talking about the general hydroponics nutrient solution. I generally follow the pattern. In the summer, I double up my Flora Micro Grow and Bloom. So instead of 5 mils per gallon, I do 10 mils per gallon for those 3. And I continue with the 5 mils per gallon for CalMag and Diamond Nectar and 2 mils per gallon for Rapid Start and HydroGuard. Oh my God, I need to buy HydroGuard. Sorry, mine, you know how it's only good for 6 months? I think it's been 6 months. Oh gosh, I need to order that. Thanks for reminding me. Okay, let me do that first. 15% off, okay. Yes, ma'am. When it comes to young plants, I might take the existing nutrient solution, whether it's during the summer or winter, and just add water. So sometimes it's 1 part water, 1 part nutrient solution. Sometimes it's 2 part water, 1 part nutrient solution. I just need to make sure that I'm not overfeeding the plant because first of all, it doesn't need it. I know in the past, I am notorious for over fertilizing young plants, but it doesn't need it, so I tend to dilute it. In my opinion, it like really depends on like the stage of how young the plant is. So for example, the antherium seedlings that I got, I'm not feeding them because it doesn't need it. I would say your safe bet is to do the 5 mils per gallon for Flora Micro Grow and Bloom. And I still believe that is the best starting concentration if you're new and getting started with this mix and growing plants in leca, for example. See how your plants grow. If they're continuing to grow, the leaves are getting bigger, the foliage, stems, petioles, parts of the plant, the roots are looking healthy, don't change anything. Okay, and the last question from Patreon. Ryan Jones with the fantastic questions again. Hello, Ryan. What 3 albums shaped you as a human being? Okay, I have thought about this question since I read it in October, and it's a very hard question, so I'm gonna like change it a little bit. I'm sorry. It's a good question, but I want to answer this question as what 3 albums have impacted you the most in your life? I'm gonna start off with Evanescence, Fallen, the first album. I listened to that for so long. Oh my gosh, I had an Amy Lee poster on my wall, but it was just like a darker music and more emotional music that at a younger age, because when did this come out? March 2003. I was like 12. I was actually 11 still. I don't know, just like the transition from like child to teenager with this album, like it was just like a moment. And like obviously I love the music, but even like The Open Door, the second album, which I think is underrated. I almost like that album more than Fallen. Second album, I'll say Sam Smith in The Lonely Hour. So around that time, I was going through a really bad breakup with a ex-boyfriend that I was together with for like 5 years. And it was like my first love, like, you know, when it's your first love, you know, you get really emotional. It's this whole thing. There were a lot of the songs where it kind of related to what was happening in real life. And so like, I don't know, I just related to it so much. And it weirdly helped me through that time. Like I listened to this album on repeat, like, okay, and I'm gonna cheat with the last one, and the last one's gonna be like, not even an album, it's gonna be like 2 artists, and just their music and how they make me feel, and like when I'm like sad, I can always listen to these artists and just feel better. There's something with like their voice or their music that I just like, I feel. Rascal Flatts, their whole like, oh my all of their albums, all their songs. It is amazing. I've seen them twice. They are so good. Gary's voice is amazing. And again, the feels when I hear his voice and Brandy. Oh my gosh, like throwback, that R&B sound and that voice, those runs. I think it's the runs. Have You Ever is probably one of my favorites. So yeah, sorry I cheated, but like when a song, a voice, a meaning of a song, like that's kind of like the theme with all of the albums and artists that I've picked, like so good. I'm just noticing now that those are 4 different, like you have rock with Evanescence, R&B soul with Brandy, Sam Smith is pop, and the Rascal Flatts is country. Wow. Okay, moving on to questions I got from Instagram. I'm afraid to put plants in leca, but you have so much success. How do you do it? I'm afraid. It is totally normal to be afraid of this. And still to this day, if I'm taking soil off of plants' roots and transferring it into leca, it's still a scary thing because a lot of the roots die off, unfortunately. I would say you gotta start with a propagation first. Like take a cutting that hasn't developed its root system yet, has an aerial root, and propagate the plant. You know, starting out with philodendrons, monsteras, like those are pretty easy to propagate in leca, I find. I still personally believe that Hoyas are easy to propagate in leca. You just have to keep the water level high so the lecas, like the little balls, stay moist around the stem. I would do propagations first because I feel like if you only remove soil off of plants' roots and put them into leca, and you see a lot of rot and plant death, like you might think that leca isn't for you because you haven't had the success. But propagations, the success rate I find is much higher. Ultimately, I do think the biggest thing is give it a lot of light, more than you would usually do with that certain plant. So for example, antheriums, monsteras, philodendrons, they don't need a ton of light. Like they could do really well in medium light conditions. However, if you're transferring a plant, you're putting it into shock. And so by offering it or giving it more light than what it usually gets, it just ensures that it can make enough energy to push out new roots specifically. And so I always say blast them with light. I'm gonna post my update for my Thai constellations that I transferred in September from arid mixes to pon. Arid mixes to leca, no casualties, amazing root growth, some new leaves. I hope y'all will watch that one. High constellations don't need like 1,000 to 2,000 foot candles, but I blasted them because I knew I had a better chance that they would survive if I did that, and they all survived. They are now further away. I have since lowered the shelf, so they're probably getting medium to bright and direct. So those are my 2 tips, like start with propagations and then also give them a lot of light in the beginning. What kind of spagna moss do you use? Do you find using premium moss matters in poles? I actually don't. I used to believe that they did. The only thing, I don't like using the dehydrated moss that come compressed because they tend to be less stringy and more in like pieces. So like, for example, like if you put that in a moss pole and it's like small pieces of moss instead of strands, then it just falls out the moss pole, it gets more messy. Just through time, you'll see the moss go everywhere. So I just prefer strands of moss. When it comes to, you know, plants latching on to moss poles, it doesn't matter. I don't see a difference. Yay or nay? Philodendron melanochryzum variegated. What does it even look like? Where's my phone? Okay, variegated philodendron. Okay, here's the thing. No. Nay. I think the selling point for philodendron melanochryzum is its dark foliage. And then when you introduce like a nasty like streak of yellow, no. I have the same opinion about the variegated micans. I never understood that. I was like, I don't like how it looks. It kind of goes with my opinion when it comes to variegated antheriums. Like every time you have that kind of variegation, the plant just looks sick, in my opinion. So, nay. What plants in your collection are you currently most excited about? Okay, Burly Marks Flames. Monstera Burly Marks Flames. Okay, y'all know. I mean, I don't know if y'all know, but I propagated my Monstera Burly Marks Flame in August. I will be putting out a video showing the propagation process, but I now have, I don't even know, is it 9? I have 9 baby Burly Marks Flames. So that is the one I'm most excited about because I love that plant. Oh my gosh. Okay, plants, meaning plural. Okay, what else? There's too many. There's too many right now. There's a philodendron strawberry shake, the one that's in the big bucket of leca. I think it's coming to a year. In my experience, the thing with philodendron strawberry shake is usually there's a little bit of a lag in the beginning if they don't have a big enough root system, if they haven't latched onto the edges of the pot or have grown roots, like enough roots so it feels secure. And during that time, the plant doesn't really do anything. The foliage almost gets smaller in a sense, but once it gets to the stage where it's there and it feels secure, it starts pushing out leaves like faster. So a year later, the one in the bucket is doing so well. Oh my God, my camera's overheating. How do you grow such massive antheriums? Over fertilization. Seriously, I don't know. Again, in the beginning of my antherium journey, I do think that I was overfeeding a lot of them. I think some of them, like as a result of that, they grew really big. They did sustain damage from like the salts, specifically the velvet leaf ones, like the regale, the queen antherium, and I've shown that in my videos. And I mean, 95% of my antheriums are in pon. So I don't know if that makes a difference. Again, pon holds on to everything: water, nutrients, toxins. I know a lot of other people have had success with growing big antheriums in leaves of pon. Obviously, people have had success for years growing these plants in chunky airy mixes. I am not the one who has success with that substrate, but I do truly believe like aeration, first of all, and the pon has those fixed air pockets between them, but also the water retention properties that pon has. More than other plants, I feel like antherium roots need to be moist at all times, but not sitting in water. Like it's a weird in between. So that is a big factor, I think, at why they're growing big. I've actually like pulled back on the feeding these days, where I'm only really feeding them like every 1 to 2 months and just putting tap water in between. So yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of factors. Full regale. I'm just noticing regale is spelt regale. Is it regale? I know a lot of people say regale, but it's spelt regale. Full regale care tutorial boots the house down, mama. Oh, that was a lot. Again, I am no expert. I do think I did over fertilize it a bunch in the beginning, and that's why the leaves in the, I think before a year ago, so like 2 years ago, like they didn't look the best. But I do plan to do a video about it in the future, maybe during Vlogmas. But here's the thing, I'm no expert. I'm just gonna share in the video like what I did and what she looked like before and what she looks like now in the journey. I think this antherium, because it's velvet leaf and I personally believe sensitive, like more sensitive compared to the queen antherium in my experience, I think the salts really impact it. I really do. And also like when the roots are in the reservoir, if they're too wet, that you'll see damage. And I do think higher humidity on average helps this plant. Y'all know that my humidity fluctuates between 40 to 60. Like there's humidity, but it's not super high. I'm no expert again. I keep saying that, but like I'm not. What plant would you gift someone to get them started on their plant journey? Ooh, that's hard. It's hard because like people, like they have different tastes and like they like different things. I remember when I like got into it, like peacefully, I was like, ooh, look at these flowers. And then Aliccia, what is it called? Polly? I was like, ooh, you look freaky, I like it. So it depends. Like ultimately, I do think that people, you know, if they're starting to get into plants, a lot of them like aesthetically what a plant looks like. Like people are often into Monstera. That is just a given. People are often into Rhaphidophora tetrasperma. A lot of people are into trailing stuff. So a lot of people like trailing philodendron, trailing pothos. There's a bunch of trailing Hoyas, lipstick plants, Dischidia. So ultimately, I think you have to like ask the person. Actually, you can't because you're gifting it. I don't know. It really is like dependent on the person and what kind of plant parent they are and what they like. I feel like pothos and trailing philodendron are an easy start. A lot of people do snake plants, but like I believe that people overwater those too much. Every time I suggest Dracaena, also no one wants one. So I do think you could go on extremes when it comes to Dracaena. Like they can tolerate or survive in lower light conditions, but they do truly appreciate highlight. But no one likes Dracaena. Again, I'm not answering the questions properly, oh god. Okay, what do you do with all your propagations? Love your channel. With Hoya specifically, I cluster them in one planter because I want a fuller Hoya. I think that's the key why a lot of my Hoyas are full. However, there are some that have just branched so much. I mean, there's a lot that I give to my mom. I think I've only really propagated Hoyas recently. And you know, a big thing why I propagate is because I want to see how plants grow from like a cutting all the way to like a full plant. So like I do keep them for a while, and so that's why space has become an issue in my room. That is a big part why I propagate, not only because I like making more, but also you get to observe firsthand how plants are. And like, let me go on a rant again. I feel like doing this really strengthens your knowledge on a specific plant, because you can read all you want on the internet, but like what plants do in your environment, how they behave and how they grow from nothing to something, you learn things through that process as you see when things don't go well. And so for me, I just wanted like all the opportunity in the world just to observe plants and, you know, just strengthen that knowledge through experience. It was kind of like, okay, not plant related. So y'all know that I'm a nurse, but when I started, I was like floating between 2 hospitals, and it could be any floor. It could be general surgery one day, the next day it could be cardiology, general medicine, urology. Anyhow, very stressful time, but I learned so much. Just getting thrown into these environments where I didn't know much, and just like through experience and the stress of it all, like you become a better nurse, in my opinion. It's kind of the same with plants. Like, I know I have too many, I know that, but now with a lot of my plants, I'm basing my experience on multiple plants. Like I usually, this is gonna sound bad, I usually don't trust opinions from plant people that only have one, because you could have just been lucky and you've kept it alive. It's my opinion. Whereas like, y'all know my experience with my Thai. Like I've propagated my Thai multiple times. I've grown it in pond, leca, arid mix moss with success. And I've learned so much about it. Same thing with Hoyas. I'll give you an example. So in the past, I've always thought that the Hoya silver dollar was a super slow grower. And I was like so firm on that belief, but I only had one plant. It wasn't until I propagated it and grew it both in leca and pond did I realize that it's not a slow grower. It just kind of needs to build that root system first and feel secure before it pushes out growth. I also do kind of believe, based on my experience and my opinion, that it does need a lot of light to grow at that rate. So that's an example, because like if I didn't propagate it and grow multiple, I would still today think that it's one of the slower Hoyas when it actually isn't. Okay, whoa, that was a rant. I'm so many rants recently. Ooh, okay, I'm so happy you asked this question, because like it's a big question. It's not plant related. Who are some of your favorite tennis players, male and female? Oh my God, stop. I love getting these non-related plant questions, like, and especially with tennis. Tennis is my favorite sport to watch, because in other sports, it's like you're with a team, so there are many players, but like tennis, you are by yourself on that court. I watch women's tennis more just because, I'm gonna be honest, men's tennis is kind of boring and it's really like unimpressive to me. Recently, just the consistency of a lot of players, it's just kind of sad to me. And Djokovic wins everything. I'm kind of bored. There's no denying, like, Djokovic is like the best. Look at his record. Look at all the things that he's won. But it's just, I can't watch men's tennis now because the other young players, they're not even close. They're not even close to beating him. Saying that, when we're talking about male players, Djokovic is not one of my favorites. I do really love Roger Federer. I know he's retired now. You know, I'm a huge fan of Rublev's forehand. Oh. And before, like during his prime, like I was a big Wawrinka fan. So good. Also Alcaraz. Gotta say Alcaraz, oh my God. And women, I watch it more because, I don't know, I'm more interested in it. So this list is longer. I am the biggest Naomi Osaka fan, and also Arina Sabalenka. Like, those are my top 2 for a while. Early 2018, I watched them and I told my boyfriend, I'm psychic also, if y'all didn't know. I told my boyfriend, I was like, these 2 are going to be a big deal. Fast forward, Naomi Osaka, 4 slams, #1 in the world. Sabalenka, 1 slam, #1 in the world. Can I just say, so I've been a big fan of those two from the beginning of their careers. I really, really love our Canadian women. Bianca Andreescu. Oh, she just gets injured so much. But I love the way she plays. It is so different. Layla, my girl. Layla. There's so much potential with that girl. She's gonna be so good. For the longest time, I've been a Muhuva fan. Again, Muhuva in that all court game, so good. And I guess like let's go through like people that have retired already. Like I was a huge Serena Williams fan. Big fan of Venus also. I feel like it's just not fair that people don't talk about Venus enough because like she has won 7 slams and 5 of them being Wimbledon. Like Wimbledon is the hardest slam to win, and like she's won 5 of them. Like, that is insane. Henin and Mauresmo, insane to me. Monica Seles, whew. If Monica was that age and played today, she'd be winning everything. Steffi Graf, oh, so good. And if we're looking at doubles, Shea Sue, an icon. Shea Sue, I can't even like comprehend the way she plays tennis. Anyways, do you feel like you will get rid of all the plants that you have and stop caring about plants? So I don't think so. Like plants are just so fascinating. There are so many different kinds that I still want to explore, like the whole orchid world. Like I want to explore that so badly, but just room, and really it's just room. Like I don't have enough. I don't think so. And like also like outdoor gardening, like I haven't explored that at all. So like in the future, if I move out into a house, just having that kind of experience, there will be plants that I fall out of love with, that I feel like that's just kind of inevitable, but I think I won't stop ever caring for plants. I feel like plants are unique where they're living things and like different from other obsessions. Like I know this obsession kind of links to like a collection standpoint, but again, they grow. It's not like you collect something and something just sits there. Like they're constantly growing. There's so many different things that you can do with plants because they're growing. And so I don't think I'm gonna stop caring for them. Does my Monstera Thai really need a moss pole? The answer is no. I've always believed that you don't need one. I know the Leku Queen has hers on a moss pole. I think there comes a stage where a pole is kind of useless, like if it gets really big, like as big as what mine is now. Plants, again, are living things. They will find their way around the moss pole and ignore it. If your Thai is too big, then I wouldn't recommend it. I don't ever grow my Thais on moss poles and they're fine. But I mean, if you want to do it, then why not? Like that's your choice. It's kind of like how I'm growing my terrestrial philodendrons on moss poles and they're thriving. Like if you want to try it, then try it. Can you do a full Hoya care guide? Like fertilizer, pest control, the works. Ooh, that's a lot. I do want to. Again, it would be based on my experience. It's a lot of work, guys. So if you really want me to do that, then definitely leave a comment in the comment section below. Leave a like on this video. And yeah, I'll start working on it. Hoya Serpents care tips. Okay, I'm reserving this for a Vlogmas video. I'm gonna do one. So in the coming weeks, expect a Hoya Serpents care tips video. If you were a plant, which one would you choose to be? I mean, I've said strawberry shake for the longest time. I don't know what I changed it to. I think I'm gonna stick with that. Is variegated yetti worth the hype and money? So from what I've heard, the variegation is like not consistent. The only other plant I could kind of relate it to is like maybe the Florida Beauty. I just know a lot of people that have propagated their variegated yetti, and it's either been all green with like some speckly of yellow or all yellow, so all variegated. So I mean, it's a risk you're gonna have to take, but there's a reason why I don't have one. It's still so expensive, and I'm just like, it's gonna revert. It's gonna revert. Or go the other side where it's too variegated. So I wouldn't say it's worth the money. Albo in water, I think they're talking about Monstera albo. Albo in water with roots and ready to be transplanted. What do you recommend transplanting it into? You could use any medium. You could do leca, you could do pod, you could do aerate mix. If you don't want to go straight into one of those mediums, you could try perlite as well, or moss. It's ultimately like what you feel the most comfortable with. So I would never transfer one of my elbows into an aroid mix because I don't like growing plants in aroid mixes. I would do either pon or leca, and that's only because I do like the consistent air pockets around the medium and the plant's roots when the plant's in it. Obviously that helps in root health and maintaining that healthy root system. So I'm biased, so I would do those two. But whatever you feel most comfortable with, like if you're used to propagating or growing plants in aroid mixes, then you should do that. I do think aroid mixes need to be kept a little bit more wet in the beginning when you do water props to soil, and give it a lot of light. Like that is probably the biggest thing. Do you ever deal with mealybugs? Like, have you noticed Hoyas are magnets? Y'all, I, knock on wood, I thankfully have not had any mealybug situations. I almost think I don't have them because I usually grow Hoyas from like a cutting. And I feel like at that point you could monitor it more and they're not necessarily like touching other plants. I think that's why I don't have mealybugs. I never have ever bought a Hoya from like a big box store, for example, or like a big Hoya in general. I generally don't like buying plants big. I haven't experienced it. I know other people have, and I know like people do like those dunks and soap to treat that. So I don't know. I haven't had them. Do you have any Alocasia? I have an Alocasia golden bone. She's not looking the hottest. I do need to like assess the roots and transplant her into a pot. And I was gonna do that, but I realized I didn't have leca. So we're just gonna have to wait maybe a week or two. Alocasia for me, my interest has gone up and down with Alocasia. Currently my interest is down. The only one that I truly love right now is the Alocasia golden bone. That is my baby. What are some of your wishless plants? So Hoya Argentine Princess is still on it. I feel like I said this last year. Really any antherium hybrid. I mean, I said that already. So I still want Red Anderson. I want the Silver Serpents. I want it so badly. I see it and I'm just like, I want you so bad. Oh my God, y'all are gonna hate me when I answer this. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings? Here's the thing. I'm not a fan of either. They're just things that I'm not gonna enjoy watching. I can appreciate them. And I'm not saying that these are bad. Like, because I like giving these things a third, fourth, fifth chance, I have watched both Star Wars and Lord of the Rings like 3 times, like the whole thing. It still doesn't interest me, but I can appreciate how good they are. But if I had to pick, I would choose Star Wars. Obviously, y'all know that I'm a Star Trek fan. Can you please sell us some strawberry shortcake? I think they mean philodendron strawberry shake cuttings. You know, initially it was a plan too. Y'all know that. It's become more of just watching how the variegation presents and just learning from that. But also like me not feeling comfortable selling certain specimens because just knowing how this plant grows, and a lot of the time the variegation, you might think that it's stable and it will do its thing in the future, but it doesn't. So anyhow, I've only sold one and it was to one of my patrons, and that was a really variegated one. It was one of my favorite ones. It was the only one I felt comfortable selling to someone. I didn't sell it, I did a plant trade. But like, yeah, maybe in the future, but I've said this before, but the success rate of getting good specimen, you propagate, let's just say you propagate 100, a third of the specimens will be all green. A third of the specimens will be all variegated, and then a third of them will be balanced. And in that third that are balanced, half of those will be leaning to the green, like favoring green, and half of those will lean into what most people want. And so that small size out of 100, like what is that, 17? That's not a big percentage of good specimens. So like, I'm still propagating, still trying to make more. So potentially in the future that will be a thing. When will you start an online plant shop so we can support you, share the plant love? I know, I get this question a lot. I don't even know if that's gonna happen next year. Okay, are you excited for Canada's Drag Race? Here's the thing about Canada's Drag Race. I have a lot of opinions. I know different seasons around the world, and just the American one, they're not perfect. Canada's Drag Race has kind of left a sour taste in my mouth since season 1, because I was a big Jimbo fan season 1, and even though I love Priyanka, I was so angry at the amount of criticism they were giving Jimbo, and it wasn't fair in my opinion. I feel like they just didn't get it. So that sour taste has kind of lingered through the seasons. I do like watching it. I've watched the first episode of this season and I'm kind of meh. We'll see what happens. I don't know. Sometimes when I watch Canada's Drag Race, I'm like, we're doing this choice, not with the contestants, but like production wise. I just like, what? Why are we doing this? Anyhow, that's just my opinion. Okay, and moving on to YouTube questions. Hey sis. First question, how are you? Really? Hope all is going well in all areas. It's rough out there in the earth streets. I know, girl. I know. I'm doing well. Again, I keep forgetting what I've shared on Patreon versus what I've shared on here, but I'm doing a lot better. February to May, what a blur. I still can't recall like what was happening during that time. I was in like a really dark state and I didn't share it because like I didn't want to. Yeah, so if I'm comparing to that, I'm a lot better. You know, finding joy again in what I do, doing things I love, taking care of myself, not being too hard on myself. Like those are all like aspects that I've improved on in the past like 5 months. And so right now I'm doing well. Ask me after Vlogmas though, because like I'm gonna be just so tired probably, but it'll all be worth it. What is your opinion on need benefit of heat mats for plants during our PNW winters? What does that mean? Pacific Northwest? Oh my God, I didn't know that was... Okay, so that's like on the other side of where I live. I just know y'all have wetness everywhere. Is that true? I hear like Seattle, like British Columbia, like wet and snowy vibes, right? Well, not California, obviously. For me, I think heat mats are just most important when it comes to seedlings, really young plants. And it's hard for me to give an opinion about this because I've never owned one and never tried one. Which plants do you think would benefit most? Plants tend to do fine, whatever substrate they're in during the winter. Saying that a lot of them aren't babies. If you have any young plants, I would stick them on there. But it's hard to give my opinion on this, sorry. Hi Kevin, 2 questions for you. Will you be adding any other orchids to your collection? Okay, let me answer this first question. I kind of want to make a rule for myself because a year ago, my Phalaenopsis weren't doing well and y'all know that they were living in moss. A year ago, I thought I could handle like keeping on top of the watering when they were living in moss, but I was wrong. And so a year ago, I experimented growing them in leca and like they've all done pretty spectacular, I think. So I said I wanted to see how they grew in leca, make sure that they're doing well and healthy before I get more orchids. The thing is, in the process of that, my Paphiopedilums, I killed all of them but one, and that one isn't necessarily doing well. If anything, orchid-wise, I'd want paphs before phals because, ooh, I'm itching to just learn more about them and how they'll grow in different substrates in my environment. But like, I just need to take a pause with paphs. Maybe I'll get some phals, but I want so many. It's such like a struggle. Okay, second part, any pointers, tips on a Hoya that has done nothing for the past 7 months? He seems to have a big growth spurt and now nothing. If I see a plant is not doing anything, like the 3 things that I look for always, root assessment first, light assessment, is this plant getting enough light? And then pest assessment. The 4th thing, I think those are the 3 important things when I see this, but the 4th thing that's also relevant is nutrients, maybe upping that. But I would first look at the first 3. I feel like, you know, obviously when a plant grows, it has more leaves. With more leaves and more growth, the plant ultimately does need more nutrients. So that's why I would link maybe fertilizing or upping the nutrients. In your experience, do sunstress Hoyas bloom as readily as non-sunstress? I love the look of sunstress ones, but I also want to see some blooms. I don't think it matters. Sunstressing is just a part of some Hoyas where if you subject them to a lot of light, they change color. It's kind of like a defense mechanism. It really depends on the Hoya. I firmly believe that there's no difference. Hoya Sunrise, that's one that I've seen sunstress and bloom easily, like from both sides. My Gunnar Gadding now, and I don't know how often it blooms, but it's so close to blooming for the first time. Oh, my Helwigiana bloomed. I've only had that. like 6 months and it bloomed already. Does your Burly Marks flame hate growing into the reservoir, or is it just mine? So you'll see it in the video that I post in the coming week or two on this plant, the propagation process. My roots were sitting in the reservoir, and when I took the whole plant out, like the roots were fine. Long term though, it might have issue if you're not changing the reservoir as much, so you're not supplying it with like fresh either nutrient solution or water, and then if you're not giving it a lot of light. I see that. Now it's kind of hard for me to give an opinion because I did chop that plant down and now I have a bunch of babies, so I haven't really observed super long term. Oh my god, I'm so gassy for some reason. I only drank water today and coffee. One thing that might help, and I still haven't tried it, is an air stone. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It just pumps in air in the reservoir. I still to this day haven't used one, but I hear really good things about it. Have you bought plants while drinking, and did you regret the purchase? I have not. The kind of person I am when I drink is very fun, very loving. Like, I'm not necessarily impulsive when it comes to like after I'm drinking and I get home, because I don't drink when I'm home. I just kind of fall asleep. So no, I have not. Ooh, another good question. What is your favorite series of Star Trek and why? Okay, this is a long one. Thank you for asking this question. My favorite series of Star Trek is Star Trek Voyager. And this is just my preference. I know Voyager gets a bad rap, but listen. I don't think people realize how important Star Trek Voyager was for its time. Kate Mulgrew playing Catherine Janeway, Captain Catherine Janeway, a female captain. The first one that was like the lead in a Star Trek show or movie. Not only that, think about the women on that show. B'Elanna Torres, one of the smartest and strongest individuals. Kes has these powers that she doesn't even know of that are just so powerful. 7 of 9, because she's Borg, she's assimilated all this information, so smart and strong because she's Borg. Like, can you believe? Like, that came out, was it 95 or 94? Anyhow, that was a side rant, but also I liked the concept of Voyager, where they were blasted into the Delta Quadrant, knowing that the Borg is from the Delta Quadrant. Like, the Borg is like one of my favorite like villains of the whole franchise. So that's another reason why I liked it. I liked discovering different species like the Hirogen. Oh, also my favorite character is Vulcans in general, so Tuvok. And that's why I didn't like, not like I didn't like because it's iconic, but Next Generation, it lacked a lead Vulcan. I don't know, I find it kind of strange that the Vulcans and humans have been part of the Federation for so long and you don't have a lead Vulcan. Poor choice in my opinion. So with Tuvok there, oh my gosh, I love his acting. But I do have to say, Deep Space Nine, it was a game changer. There's so much depth in Deep Space Nine. It takes a darker tone, you know, the occupation, the war, like it is so dark. Star Trek needed that. It needed that series. And I know like people complain about like, oh, they didn't have a ship and they weren't exploring. They were just in the space station. And I say also the acting, like the actors and actresses on that show were probably the best. Like Nana Visitor as Major Kira, slayed. I would say those are my top two. I do like all of them. I do have to say it's kind of hard to watch the original series because obviously it's outdated. Like that came out in the 60s, right? Strange New Worlds, I'm really enjoying. Lower Decks is one that I love. I love Star Trek Prodigy as well. And Enterprise, I know a lot of people don't like it. Season 3 is one of the best seasons ever in Star Trek history. I know 1, 2, and 4 are a little questionable, but if you're a true Trekkie, like you can appreciate that season 3 was one of the best seasons in the whole Star Trek world. The Xindi, that was a great storyline. I'm like nerding out with this question. I'm so sorry. What is your favorite and least favorite antherium? You know, I'm gonna have to say my queen antherium. Not only because of how beautiful the new leaf looks, but just looking back at the journey, and this is another video I'm gonna do for Vlogmas, so just looking at the journey of the queen antherium, what she started out as, you know, her start in Lekka, the struggles I had moving her into pawn, the damaged leaves, like, and just seeing how far she's come. Right now it's the queen antherium. My least favorite antherium at the moment. Do you know what? I'm gonna have to say my antherium, Chrysalina magnificum, the one that I've had for years. Not the one that I got recently from North Shore Tropicals. I don't know. That's just how I feel. So wait, question. Does that black speckling on the leaves happen from overwatering or inconsistent watering or underwatering? I think watering Hoya is so confusing. So yes, it does happen. All the above. It's not all Hoyas. I usually see it when the Hoya has more thicker succulent leaves. So I've seen it with my Michele. I've seen it with my Glaber Schlechter. Overwatering, so I'm gonna interpret this as roots are really saturated with water. It's like either the soil or pond is like too wet. If it's in leca, the root sitting in the reservoir. Kind of like a rapid uptake into the cells of the plant's leaves. And then so sometimes you'll see that speckling as a result. Again, this isn't all Hoyas. I only see this with succulent type leaves and Hoyas. Hi, what is on your Hoya wish list? I've said this already, but Argentine Princess. Oh, there's so many. Literally all of them. If a plant had root rot where there is no visible roots left, should I put it in moss or perlite? I always say start with water, whether that's a Monstera, a philodendron, a Hoya. If you have complete root loss from rot, I would put in water, change the water like every 3 days, just so like there's not an accumulation of bacterial growth. But also you can do a prop box either with moss or perlite, so just keeping the humidity high around the plant, that also works. So you can do either or. I usually do water because I don't like prop boxes, and I feel like I've had more success if it's that bad of root rot, rooting them again in water. Can you tell us your secret? How do you care for your antheriums? Oh my gosh, I get so many of these questions about antheriums and I am no expert. I feel like a lot of what I do goes against traditional antherium care, so I feel like my advice is so different. I don't know. Just try things and adapt based on what your plant is telling you. So, I mean, for example, my queen antherium, like I did see like a bunch of holes and specifically damage even before the plant unfurled. And so I would link to that with like the salts that were potentially in the reservoir that the plant's roots were kind of absorbing. And that could impact the leaf. So I did start flushing and spraying the leaf. I ultimately feel like though, since with this new leaf that is gorgeous, I only sprayed it once as opposed to every single day while it was unfurling. I do think with certain velvet leaf antheriums, you do have to flush them once in a while because that ultimately resulted in this beautiful leaf. So that was all a trial and error. But like, for example, my Veitchii, I didn't flush that plant for 2 years and she did okay. I think I have to start flushing it now. Y'all know my opinion about flushing. I feel like people do it way too much. I don't know. I feel like I'm not the person to ask. I can talk about my experiences, and there's gonna be some videos in December where I share my experience growing certain antheriums, but I don't have a secret. Hey, last question. Do you have any videos about how you water your Hoyas in pond? Do you water from the top or just fill the reservoir? I do both. Specifically propagations that maybe have grown a little bit of a root system. I personally like to water top to bottom, but once they develop that root system, I don't really care like I do either or. I don't think there's a difference. The reason why I do top to bottom when it comes to the Hoya props is because sometimes the water loss from the pond on the surface from evaporation, depending what your environment is like, sometimes it's too much. That top layer is where like the stem is, where the roots are. So it's just helping those root systems while they're in their young stages stay moist. Okay. That's all the questions. Wow. A little bit of a change of pace from, my plant tour videos. So thank y'all for being here and sticking around. And yeah, I will see y'all in the next one.